All right, cool. I think we are live now. At least I clicked the button. That usually means we're live. We got a few people, a couple dozen people actually
Oh
here.
yeah?
Yeah, yeah. So
Well,
they were all
I
ready
can't
for
tell.
you.
Me?
Yo,
Poor old me?
they're not here for
Okay.
me.
I don't know. They're here for Alan. They're not here for me.
Yeah, that is probably true. All right, so we have John Vullo, who is a guitarist and transcriber and musician from Long Island, New York. I grew up not far from where he lives, just a few miles actually. I was born on Long Island, and we have a lot of connections still. We were just discussing the Sam Ash in Carl Place, where I've been several times. I had no idea that, John, you spend a lot of time there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I, mean,
so
I was a sales guy there for a few years, and then I taught. So it's possible. I might have sold you something I didn't even realize in 2006, 2009.
you probably sold something to my uncle who regularly buys things and doesn't tell his wife, and then he says, "Oh, I always had that."
I'm really good with faces, so if I see him, I know who he is. I might recognize him. And go, oh yeah, I
I'll
know
send
him.
you a photo. Anyway, so we've got John here, and if you're watching this stream, you probably know John put out a 5.5 hour YouTube video about all of his transcription work of Alan Holdsworth's guitar solos. John, you are just so over the top ridiculous in your level
Yeah.
of detail. And I have to say, guys, I first met John in person in Brooklyn a few months ago, and I spent like an hour just soaking up all of his knowledge and wisdom about Alan, like a sponge. And he was like, "Okay, I got to stop. I'll just keep going all night."
I felt so bad. I totally took over that conversation.
No, it was awesome. And everyone, it was me and Coulter, Greg Bendian, and John, and everyone is a big Alan Holdsworth fan, but no one, I don't think any of us were a fan like John is a fan. So, John, tell us a little about yourself and what led you to put together this crazy 5.5 hour video.
Well, I'm kind of like this. This is one of my problems that I have is that I'm like a hyper focused kind of person on one thing. Like, as you know, you've seen my Dawn of the Dead posters and stuff. I've probably seen the movie thousands of times, but like a lot of popular movies I haven't seen because I just don't care. And that's kind of what it is with Alan. So many people are so kind and nice to me, and they ask, oh, what do you think about this guy or with this guy? And I just don't know. But I really connected with Alan because once I started to get it, I felt what he does is very similar to what I would want to do and what I enjoy. So for me, it was like such a learning process. And I came from a very, not really, I didn't have a lot of music lessons growing up. I didn't go to music school or anything, but I was kind of a stupid student in a way when someone taught me something, I was like, that's the way that it has to be, and that's it. So when I got into Alan, it was so different from anything that I would have thought of, and so many things I went, yeah, that's so obvious. Why didn't I think of that? So as he's improved my playing so much, I feel there are probably a bunch of people out there that are like me that like are in that same kind of spot. And once I started to kind of get it and realize how some things are intimidating, but some things aren't, that I want to bring them in and say, hey, this isn't so bad. Or like, I never knew that you can do this. You can think of it like this or do it this way. And people have been responding. It's like nothing. The reason why the video is so long, because nothing in it is, to me, super complicated, is there's just so much of it.
I don't know. I think Alan Holdsworth's one of those players who sounds like he has different notes, like it sounds like his frets
Yeah.
aren't in the same place on the guitar. And frankly, when I haven't watched the full 5.5 hours, but when I
I don't
watched the
blame you.
first hour and a half or so, and then you get to this part about his major licks and his diatonic playing, and I'm like, what? And then you said he mostly plays diatonically and in one like vertically. He doesn't play horizontally so much. And one of the
Mhm.
scary things about watching Alan when he's soloing is you feel like his hands are twice the size of any normal human being's hands, but that's not the case from everything I've heard from other people. And the notes that he's playing just sound like they sound like if you took each note, it would be wrong, but it's not wrong. And somehow he makes it work. And I feel like he has this magic, like a Houdini-esque type of reputation on this instrument. So can you talk, why are people fascinated by Alan Holdsworth and his playing, and why would you dive in so deep? Because people aren't doing this for like John Mayer. There's no 5.5 hour John Mayer video. So what is it?
It's because Alan just doesn't play like a normal guitar player. It's just that simple. Like and that's one of the reasons that attracted me so much. It wasn't like, oh, it's just, some blues licks, although there are, some of all those elements in there. But he just sounded like no other guitar player that I heard. So it wasn't anything I could go, well, I recognize this, I recognize that. I had to dig in deeper. And, it's funny. I have, I don't know if this is breaking news to anybody, but I might want to do this stuff from the 70s to the 80s. Because I'm like, I did everything. I want to just, put this in there. But when I listen to it, because I'm not that familiar with it, Alan still sounds like Alan, but he sounds more like a traditional guitar player.
Yeah, in the 70s for sure.
Yeah, and that doesn't personally excite me so much. Like when I hear stuff that he does with the syntax or stuff, that he did later in his career, and he just doesn't sound like a normal guitar player.
Yeah,
and
so
I think that's what fascinated me so much. It's like, what is he doing that I can't really recognize? And I'm sure other guitar players do the same thing. It's just that I'm not familiar with them, nor did I connect with their playing so much. Like if I was a big Frank Gambale fan, which I am, not to an Alan extent, I probably would do the same thing. And so like, what is he doing? I really want to get under the hood and figure it out.
Okay, so how many solos did you transcribe?
On the PDFs, it's 189. Yeah.
Yeah, but overall, like since you started in the 80s and you went until his death, right?
Yeah.
How many songs? How many solos? Tell us. Give us some numbers, raw numbers.
Yeah, it's about 180. I've done more. Like yesterday, I did a little bit of Protocosmos, just a few licks from it, just to get the idea. But really, everything that I did are in the PDFs. And it's funny because last minute, someone gave me a UK CD, the popular UK one, and I knew of the In the Dead of Night solo, and I was listening to it in my car, and I went, oh wait, I recognize these lines, I recognize this, and I felt like at the very last minute I needed to like add that because it's it's so iconic. I said, why not? These are special little bonus things. So it was I had to go through about over 200, but there are about 189, 190 that are actually in the PDFs. That it was like there's something actually there. I think I mentioned this like the solo for Material Real. There's just like there's nothing that fits what I was looking for, or the solo for Endomorph. It's just like it's pretty cool. It's a great solo, but not. I was looking for those fast lines, something that I can go like, oh, here's a shape or here's whatever. So
yeah, so your thumbnail says over 37 years, 52 records, 165 solos, and 946 examples as a
that's what's in the video.
Yeah, a comprehensive study of Alan Holdsworth improvisational ideas, patterns, scales, charts, etc. So for people who are watching, I'd love to hear your questions for John, but largely, like, John, could you help us understand why do people think Alan sounds like an alien? And then what did you learn about Alan's playing that was actually very human and normal?
Well, like I was saying before, he just doesn't play guitar like a normal guitar player, so there's nothing for your ear to really latch onto, as well as his use of just playing outside and just sort of creating chaos on the guitar. So one of the things that made this project easier was doing the chord stuff before, because I was able to follow what he was playing over the chords or harmony. And sometimes if he's playing with the keyboard, it's easier to tell, but a lot of times he's playing over the changes, but there's no harmony accompaniment behind it. But if I know it, I can hear what he's trying to do. So as I was listening to the solos, I was going like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then he's going to go to this scale. Okay, I can hear that change. And that's where I started to realize like, oh, there's kind of these patterns. There's like, he's not doing anything as crazy as I thought it was. And that's why I included that in the video, like why his solos are so hard to follow. It's not all the time what he's playing, but it's also what he's playing over, because it's not a typical jazz standard. It's not a 2-5-1. It's not, there's no real simple structure to it.
Yeah.
So if you're not familiar with that, it just sounds like, even when I first listened to it, it just sounded like random notes until you really know the form. And if I might want to do a video on this, like if I take one of his solos and show you the chord and show you what he plays and then play through it, it'll probably be a lot easier for people to absorb it more and see what he's trying to do, instead of it just like, if you listen to it without that, it just sounds like, he's playing weird notes at weird times, and it just doesn't make sense. You really need to know both the harmony and his patterns.
A couple of the things that surprised me about your analysis is, so number one, he almost seemed to not care. Like if he had a melody, like I think you had a simple melody, it was like C, D, E,
Yeah.
Do, do, do. He would, like most diatonic players would say, okay, the C, that can be the root for the first chord, and the D could maybe be a 9 in the C, and then the E ends up being an E minor or something like that. A lot of people stick to the root, the third, the fifth, something like that.
Yeah.
But it seemed like Alan didn't really care about if the chord was in a scale. It was almost like if the note could fit, you had the C could be, the second for B flat, or a 9, It could be the minor third for a G minor chord or something like that. So the chord didn't have to stay diatonically like in that constraint. Is that what you noticed a lot in his composition?
Yeah, it was like, I think of it like, what was the name of that game? Perfection, where you get all the little puzzle pieces and you got to sort of put them.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like that, where he plays a chord. See, this is what makes like teaching the Alan stuff is a little difficult. Like I can teach you sort of the details, but not how he thinks. So it's like he has a chord. I can't tell you why the chords go in this order. It's what he heard. But if he's got a specific chord, it's like, okay, what scale does this chord belong to, or what family? And sometimes it's not always obvious. And I think the first time I recognized that, I mentioned it in the video, was in Pudwood, because I knew how to play the chords already from doing an analysis of it. And I mentioned this in the video, I'll just reiterate it again. The first chord of the song is an F major 7 sus2. So it doesn't have the third in it. So the first time he plays it, I would think, oh, that belongs to C major. And then when that chord comes back again, I would think, well, it's the same chord, he must be thinking C major there. But because there's no third in it, when he plays it again, instead of playing C major, he thinks of it as F melodic minor. It's like, well, there's no A or A flat in there. Why can't I use either? And that's something that you would not know unless you follow his scale charts or you analyze his own solos. So sometimes obvious chord progressions might not have obvious scales associated with them. It might be some weirder, bizarre scale, or, as long as something fits. And that's what I said about my video. Sometimes some of these things are so hard to analyze because there's so much overlap. It could be A, B, or C. What is it really? And in the end, it doesn't really matter. But that's why I wish I had more of his charts. I could look through it and say, oh, he's thinking of this. He's thinking of that specifically. But you would not know unless you figured out his stuff.
Well, we have a few questions from viewers.
Okay.
Jared Falk mentioned that he uses standard tuning, but Nathan Lowry, I'm sorry, it wasn't Nathan. Spike Spikerson, Club Weird member, asked if Alan used normal tuning or something like new standard tuning that Fripp uses. Now, I remember you telling me about the syntax, and some of the tunings that he was using were like bonkers. So could you talk about Alan's experimentation with tuning?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I give all this credit to my friend Joe Britton because he's the one that discovered this. So Alan has said in interviews that he used not only just regular guitar tuning, but he would also tune the guitar. He had one guitar that was tuned in fifths, but most of the tuning stuff is on the syntax. And the way that he tuned it in fifths was the high E string is the same pitch as it would be on a normal guitar. So that E string is the same, but going from low to high, it's F, C, G, D, A, and E, with the low F being like the first fret on a bass. And the other tuning is fourths tuning, which is just every interval between two strings is a fourth, E, A, D, G, C, and F. But what was really surprising is that he would sort of play around with this using the syntax with these octave jumps. So this is what Joe discovered. We first found it out in Spokes, and if you're familiar with the tune Spokes, when he first soloing this, is like really bizarre kind of line in it that just doesn't make any sense. And if you try to do it on standard guitar, he's like, how do you jump up so high and the fingers can be so weird? And what Joe figured out is that not only is the syntax tuned in fourths, but every other string is also tuned an octave higher. So you actually end up getting a really simple pattern, but the notes are jumping up on all these weird different areas. But in terms of like weirder tunings that he would do, it was just fifths, fourths, and standard. Everything else was just some weird, like, moving the top three strings an octave down, or I call the weirdest one is reverse tuning. So he would play, imagine the guitar being tuned to standard. So you have E, A, D, G, B, E, and the strings go from low to high. Imagine reversing that. So the lowest string is the bottom E string, and the highest pitched one is the high E string. But you're still playing E, A, D, G, B, E. So your shapes don't change, but the phrasing is completely unique and weird. And that mostly happens on the actual syntax. But actually playing a real guitar, he had a double neck where one was tuned in fifths and the bottom neck was in standard. But that's really it. Most of the weird stuff happened on the syntax, and you would never know.
That's really fascinating.
Very sneaky, because he never mentioned that before.
Yeah. Nathan Lowry asks, is Alan Holdsworth to the guitar like Chick Corea is to the piano? Or what would be better comparisons to Alan?
This is what I was talking about, where it's like, I'm such like a weird guitar player that I hyper focus on one thing. Like, I know of Chick, I don't know much about him, so I don't know if I only know the guitar, so I don't know what he would be described. I'm trying to think of maybe something like a painter or something, maybe like a Picasso or something. Well, everyone's doing this, I'm going to do that. And part of the beauty of that was he didn't know any better because he was self-taught. It's not like he went, okay, this is what everyone else is doing, and I know what everyone else is doing, I'm going to do this instead. It was just what he was doing. He didn't think was any different from anybody else, and that worked to his advantage. So I don't know who we can really compare it to, because it's just like he just created his own unique, and that's what's so fascinating with this stuff. He figured out all the scales, his own way of thinking of harmony and scale, all this. It was so different and so simple. That's also part of it. It's also so simple compared to like what a regular jazz guy might do. So I don't know. I wish I knew more about music that I could compare him to.
Yeah,
Sorry.
When I watched and listened and thought about the theory, there are a few things that really fascinated me. First was that circle with the notes in the C major and how he saw the symmetry. And I've thought a lot about this because I teach. I've taught a bunch of people and I've taught my kids just basic Western music theory: whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, and it was like whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. That just repeats, right? And then if you play in fifths, like on a violin or something, or Robert Fripp's tuning, a C major scale is open first, open 2, 4, 5, and then the next string open 2, 4, 5. And I was like, oh, that's weird, because you realize it in fourths if you play horizontally, but it's far more obvious when you play in fifths. So I was like, Alan's stuff, it's almost like it, like you said, it's so simple. And I was like, it's almost as though someone said, I'm going to learn everything about music without learning music theory. I'm just going to, figure these scales out and then just go for it. And I thought, like, Alan's playing is like almost so complex and then yet so like simpleton, like someone who doesn't know that the rules exist.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds really pretentious, but if you look at
no, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true.
Yeah. So explain a little more about that.
Yeah. That's what I started to get from it that I enjoyed. Like I can teach the simple, and that's what I was hoping for in the video. Not so much like, here's a bunch of lines that you can cop from him, which you can do if you want, but it's the thinking approach to it. And just like thinking of the scales in a different way or just chords in a different way. So I was more fascinated at first by the chords because of the way that we name the chords is built off a tertiary harmony and all this kind of stuff. But in the end, it's just like, I just have 4 notes in the scale. Who says like, I can name this. It makes no difference when I name it. It's just, if you can go up to a piano and just take your hands on the white keys and just go, like that is a chord. That has a really terrible name, if you try to figure it out. But if you were to improvise over it, you go, oh, it's just C major, whatever. And that's as simple as it is with Alan's stuff. And it's just, why? The root, of course, can be the highest note, or it doesn't have to be there. There's no reason why these things have to be the way that they are. And I've always been joking around with students and friends of mine. Like, a lot of people have been very kind by saying things like I should be getting an honorary PhD, and that would be great for someone that never went to music school. But I myself, I don't think I could ever go to music school because I would be yelling at the professors. I would be saying, who says I can't play it like this? Why can't I do it like that? I think I say in the film, like, where's the rule book? And that's what was so exciting about Alan's playing, is that it didn't follow any formal rules. And it was just so simple as, all right, I'm going to play a chord in C major, and the notes are going to be C, B, D, and F. Okay, well, it's part of C major, but now try to name that chord. Well, if I do B, then I got the flat 9. Well, maybe it's a third inversion, but then I got the sus. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's just C major.
Right?
It's just that simple.
Yeah. So if you've made it this far into this video, I just want to remind you, Terriginous Official right here down in the lower left. That is where you can follow John and his musical partner Greg with their music, and that's where you can find a lot of this Holdsworth content. And then right here, this holdsworthpdfs.ejunkie.com, that's where you can buy John's PDFs, and it includes there's actually two products that you can you can purchase. John, tell us about the 2 different things that you can buy at that URL.
Sure. I'm glad that you mentioned Greg, by the way, because now that can force him that he has to release more videos. That's just me. But so the PDFs are really a culmination of everything that I transcribed. I didn't put everything in the video. So I have like 2,300 examples, and I only included 950 of them in the video. But that has everything, including some albums that I didn't do. But the other thing that you can buy, because some people, I have released a chord book. It's sort of like a chord thesaurus of all different sort of Alan Holdsworth voicings that I found through some of his tunes, and I sort of organized them. So for people that don't have that book and also want the collection of licks, you can buy that for $55. And if you already have the Secrets book, the collection of chords, and just want the tabs, that's $50. There is standard notation with it, but I must reiterate for anybody, they're not full transcriptions. They're just like the really fast lines, and for some solos, that's almost everything. And it's also not rhythmically super accurate, because I would still be today trying to get all that stuff down. I have to make some sort of limit somewhere. But the point of it was to find how Alan views the neck, how he's actually playing the scales, looking for patterns and clues to sort of unlock the mysteries of his playing. And I think that's what I wanted to get to before, what Alan's superpower is. I mentioned this in the video. As the keys are flying by, he's going from G major to F melodic minor to B flat, whatever. No matter what part of the neck that he's in, he can just grab and change to whatever key that he needs to fit, but also be able to use some of these patterns. That's why I included some of these longer lines in my video, where it's like, here's like a longer line that Alan's playing, and you can actually see, 4 or 5 different of these shapes in one large line. It's not just I play the scale in B flat and then I move to F and then I move here. It's like no matter where he is, and then on top of it, you can see, oh, I recognize this pattern. I recognize that shape, all that kind of stuff. And you'll find more of that in the PDFs. It's sometimes the lines were too long. I needed small, concise phrases that I can show. So, yeah, that just got everything that I did. So, and it's also a nice way for people to support. They said, oh, I'll take this because of all the work that you've done. So,
yeah,
and I'm appreciative of anything.
There is a PayPal link in the video description, John's video description, where you can donate to him. So, John, people should not buy both $50 packages, right?
No, they're the same. It's just one has my chord book, which is also on Amazon, but it's Kindle only.
Yep.
So if you don't have a Kindle and you just want the chords book and the PDFs, that's separate.
Yeah, so Alien Spore Bomb in the chat, he asked if you were considering doing a companion study on the chordal inventions of Alan Holdsworth, and we actually talked about that several months ago. Last time I interviewed you, you have a book called Secrets, and that's the other thing to purchase.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's what I started with, because that's where I started to find these little patterns and stuff. I left the solo stuff to the end because I didn't think I could do that, and when I started to learn his tunes, I recognized certain chords that were exciting to me, because I was like, oh, this is so cool. Why didn't I think about playing this like that? But I would also see them repeated in other tunes. I went, oh, wait a minute. Maybe he's got his own little chordal database that he pulled, like how we all know G, C, D, all that stuff. He has that too, but for his own shapes. And so I go, oh, he's really not any different from any of us. It's just his vocabulary is different. And I just wanted to pull from that vocabulary and say, here, you can take these or make them your own by saying, well, he uses this shape for a major 7, but not a minor 7. Mm-hmm. Or I'm going to take these ideas and apply them and I've come up with my own weird chords from that same concept. Oh, I wouldn't have thought about playing it like this because I took one of his shapes and moved them. So, yeah, I got a whole study of just the the chord stuff.
Yeah, and anyone in the chat, we're going to wrap up real soon, so if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. But a couple of things do come to mind for me as a guitarist and a learner. It would be I've always loved those fretlight necks. I just think I've never played on one, but the idea of it is super cool.
Yeah,
it would be awesome to see like on this chord. This is the scale Alan is playing. If you could have some sort of like interactivity, because he always talks about how visual it is for him on the neck and how he just sees the dots. Yeah. And it fascinated me when you had said like, yeah, Alan has like 15 scales that he plays in, but really it's only these 3. And really it's only these 2.
Yeah.
Which is super fascinating.
Yeah. And that's what I was so like afraid of when I was doing this video, that a lot of this stuff sounds so pretentious in a way. Like I can't say that I know everything about Alan's playing and everything that he's thinking about. I can only draw my own conclusions from this project, and these are my observations just for what I have seen. And that's what I meant was so surprising, that like most of his playing is really like in the major scale, and he does dip into melodic minor, but he doesn't know. I didn't say that he doesn't know. It doesn't seem like he uses melodic minor throughout the neck the same way that you would, let's say, for the major scale. Yeah. And that's where I started to like, oh, there's a pattern here. And he's going to, like, I can listen to a song or a solo that he does and go, it's going to come to melodic minor, and then watch him play and go like, oh, that's one of the things that he does. And that's, it sort of takes the excitement out of it. For some people, I didn't want that to happen, but for people like me,
I feel like that's that thing about like, I don't learn to read music because it'll taint my musical, ability to
yeah.
I mean, different people have different perspectives, but I have to say, like, I spent some time with Thomas Nordegg, who is a guitar tech for Steve Vai, and he's done work for Frank Zappa and a whole bunch of other players. But he had a guitar neck that had white and black, like for the keys. So it was just like a piano. And I was like, oh my goodness, here it is. This is what I've been missing, like, oh, it's so easy to play a C major scale. Oh, it's so like it becomes visual. And I think people have different ways of learning and appreciating music. Alan, Sun King over in the chat, he said, did Alan have synesthesia? And it sure sounds like he did, because he said he just sees dots. He could see the fretboard and the dots pop up.
I've heard that he had a photographic memory. No, what's the one where like you can just see the things you're like, but you can't write them out. You just see them in your head. What the hell's the term for it? Photo something memory. Where he can like look at all the bottles of beer on the on the counter and just look at them quickly and sort of see them. Or he's even said in like in an interview, like if you asked him what a phone number was, he wouldn't know it, but he could just pick up the phone and sort of So I think that certainly has something to do with it, where he would look at those charts and then see them on the neck, and then he would just sort of, and that's what I said was fascinating, is that he would find these symmetrical patterns that sometimes are just staring at you in the face. You go, yeah, it's right there. Why didn't I see it or think of it like that?
Or know how to use it. You might have seen it, but you didn't know how to use it.
Yeah. And it's easier for his music, and that's what I mentioned, is that like if you're playing more traditional functional music, it's kind of hard to take these same exact shapes and use them, because I think to Alan all the notes are equal. Like there's no such thing as an avoid note. Every note has equal value to it. But if you're playing like a jazz standard, you do have to mind certain things. So yeah, that shape is cool, but might not work because there's something in it that would make it sort of sound unusual. But of course, that's up to the person using it. If they want that sound, that's not wrong at all.
Another thing is, Alan, he said he didn't really listen to other people's music. He would obviously see people perform and that kind of thing, but he wasn't a listener. He just lived in his musical world. And I think that's something that so many of us just, it's a blessing and a curse. You can't help but be influenced by what you hear, and then to emulate the things that you love. But Alan he was so uninterested in that, especially for the guitar. He wanted to have the saxophone, John Coltrane on the guitar neck, So I think anyone who should learn anything from Alan, it should be like, just be the most yourself as possible, and try not to let anything else, compromise that effort. Everyone has a different way of learning and a different way of hearing and playing. Alan was clearly gifted, absolutely gifted. He thought differently. He played differently. So I just think we shouldn't try to sound like Alan. We should appreciate what Alan did, understand what he did, and how he used musical tools, like you said, the game of perfection with the puzzle pieces. I think we all should be thinking about that as students of music, for sure.
Yeah, and I said in the video, like, Alan was a genius because he thought of all this stuff, and like I could never do this, but I could pick some things that I like from it and see if I can make them my own. And like that's what I was really hoping to accomplish in the video, or just having people sort of see outside the boxes. That's what it did for me. When I did this, I didn't improve because I learned any different scales. It was just my understanding of the neck. It's just I can't even describe it. It was certainly a weird feeling. And it's funny that you had mentioned that about like letting people sort of do whatever it is that they want. I have a friend of mine. His name's Eric. I might have mentioned it before. He said, you're from Huntington, where the IMAX theater is. It's now the Paramount. He sits outside on the corner and he can play for hours. And he never plays the same thing twice. He sort of like plays like Ted Green, but as long as he can hear the tune in his head, he can play it with the walking bass line. It's unbelievable. He's the best guitar player, musician I know, period. I could never do that in a million years. And when I've talked to him in the past, he said, well, what I do is I have to learn all these standards. And I said to myself, I'm not really a fan of the traditional jazz stuff so much. It doesn't excite me as like Alan's music does because it's so different. and I appreciate the old jazz stuff, but like I find it hard to work through, some jazz standards. And then I watched an interview where my friend Eric at the Carl Place Sam Ash asked him that same thing. He said, well, you must have went through a lot of different standards. And he went, no, I didn't. I learned this all like figuring out on my own and applying it to this. And even his None Too Soon album, he didn't arrange that. The keyboard player, Gordon Beck, arranged all the tunes for him. And then he just soloed over it like he would for any of his other tunes. And it was stuff like that that solidified to me, I'm taking the right path, because if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me, and I just wanted to throw that little story in.
Absolutely. All right, cool. So I just want to reinforce that John put out this huge video for free, this crazy, comprehensive gift to the world. He's very big on karma and payback and that kind of thing. And I think it's time for us to pay John back. So if you're watching this and you've gotten this far, the dude's put in 18 months of study, transcriptions. And if you really care about Alan Holdsworth's music, or even just this type of effort, go to the link down here and purchase one or both of the packages.
Don't purchase both. I'll refund your money. I'll know who you are.
Yeah.
And I'll refund you.
So John has too good a heart. So, buy the book and the transcriptions and then donate on PayPal. Go check out the links in the video description of his 5.5-hour video. Thank you everyone who showed up in the chat today. That's really awesome to have such a large group. We've got 47 people watching.
Really?
Live.
They want to listen to me? I'm so sorry to hear that. I can't see who they are. So hi, everybody. I'm sorry.
So yeah, and just follow John at Terrigenous Official here on YouTube. And
I do want to note, this is probably going to be my last Alan video. I mean, I've got plenty more that you can go through, but I will do other lesson videos from other things that I'm interested in. But if you're looking for Alan stuff, unfortunately, it's kind of finished, but what a way to go out. This was it. Yeah. This was the big one. If you're going to go out, go with a bang.
That's how I felt about Fracture. The book was my thing. I can hold this up and say, that's it. I'm done. Yeah. See you later.
You did so much more work on that than I, all the work that I put in, it's tough for me to talk about because I would have done this for myself. So it doesn't feel like I accomplished anything, amazing. But, when I read all the nice things that people, would say and stuff, it makes, even when I was editing the video, I got to a line where I'm looking, I'm going, I don't know if that's right. And I spent 2 hours editing that one line.
Yeah.
To feel sure that I got it right.
Yep.
So, I forget all the work. Since it's been a week, I can't even remember the amount of time that I put into it. It's over with. But it's worth it. Yeah. Because I've gotten so many nice comments and people that said that I helped them, messages and stuff like that. It's really, it's too much.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Oh,
it's
also,
been worth it.
People need to click the like button on that video to help the algorithm, signal the algorithm to.
That how it works?
Yeah. So when people like it, they view it, they like it, and then the algorithm says this must be good. So like and comment. It does help on that video. So please go. I
respond to everybody.
Yeah, you do. So go to that video, like it, watch as much as you can. It's huge. It's a college course in one video. And then for Make Word Music people, we are scheduling a live interview with Stickmen. So that's Tony Levin and Pat Mastelotto from King Crimson and Marcus Reuter. So the three of them will... I'm sorry. Not Stickmen. We're arranging an interview with the Security Project with Trey Gunn, Happy Rhodes, and Jerry Murata. We're hoping to get all three of them for the interview. So that's coming in the next couple of weeks. I did film a bunch of stuff with Stickmen at Tony Levin's rehearsal space a few weeks ago in New York.
Can I mention something?
Yeah.
I didn't know Tony Levin played on John Lennon's Double Fantasy.
Tony Levin's played on everything. Bob Dylan, Paul Simon. Yeah.
It blew my mind.
You know what? In his workspace, he has a platinum Spice Girls record because he played on the Spice Girls.
Really?
I guess so.
That's amazing. I knew his career was long.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that
right.
he did so much big. It's like John Lennon. How much bigger can you get? That
Yep.
blew my mind.
Yep.
That's amazing.
I do have one last question for you, John. Can you actually play the stuff in these videos or in the book? Can you actually play them at
Yeah.
tempo?
Oh yeah. Most of it. Well, see, what happened was when I did the when I do the transcriptions, I usually don't have a guitar in my hand. I can just sort of like I shouldn't say that I'm playing it for, but I've got the first few notes. I can hear what's going on and whatever. But sometimes I'll reach a point where the beginning's right, the end is right, but the middle doesn't make sense, or maybe something about it. So what I do is I have to play through it, and I go like, what does my hand feel like where it wants to go? And sometimes that'll clue me in, like, oh, the note that I had here might make more sense over here. And through all the transcriptions, I played every one of them. I didn't play all of them up to speed because most of them I didn't need to. But some of the trickier ones that were sort of within my wheelhouse, and believe it or not, like with all the crazy, I'm only like 5'6", 5'7". I don't have big hands. There were only a handful of like lines that I could not physically stretch to play. But aside from those, in order to promote this video coming out, I do have all these shorts of me playing random lines, some of the more interesting ones from the book. Because I said,
that's right.
I've been
Guess
talking,
the lick, right?
yeah, I've been talking about it for so long. I said, well, what I could do is I could just pull up one of my PDFs and just go, oh, that line's pretty cool, and then film myself playing it and seeing if you can guess it. So,
all right,
yeah, I
cool.
didn't have to play them. Anyone can. So don't feel like you can't.
Right on. All right, so for Make Weird Music watchers, we have that join button below this video, below the player. That allows you to join Club Weird. It's $3 a month. It helps run the channel, sustain our financial independence. Although Google takes their cut, don't they, Governor? Nevertheless, we have. There's a lot of like exclusive content. There's hours and hours of stuff I haven't released, and full-length interviews and these kinds of things. Things that I work on that don't ever get finished, I release them to Club Weird. So yeah, check out Club Weird. Like I said, it's only $3 a month. If you want to join for 1 month and tell me you hate it, that's cool too. That's fine. It doesn't bother me. So please go check out John Vullo's channel, Terriginous Official. He and Greg have lots of guitar stuff on there and tons of Holdsworth content. Buy the PDF and the book, holdsworthpdfs.ejunkie.com. John, thank you for your time. Hope you guys have a great Easter weekend.
Thank you. Your check is in the mail.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thanks.
Let's, okay. I think I can end it safely now.